There are key mandates in the Revitalized Peace Agreement that remain stagnant and have yet to be implemented. Where do we stand when it comes to access to justice and judicial reform in South Sudan? Join us as we discuss this and more only on Beyond the Headlines. Our guest on the program is Mr. Roger Alfred Yoron Modi, who is a South Sudanese journalist and author of the book titled Freedom of Expression and Media Laws in South Sudan. He also recently published an article titled On Access to Justice, Judicial Reform in South Sudan. Welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you for having me, and greetings to you and to your audience.
It seems like the Revitalized Peace Agreement has been discussed extensively, but yet majority of the population from South Sudan know little about it. To start off, for those who aren't familiar with the Revitalized Agreement on the resolution of conflict in the Republic of South Sudan that was signed in 2018, what is it and what is its significance in the implementation of the peace process within the country?
The article, which is very relevant to this discussion on access to justice, judicial reform in South Sudan, they are in 3 parts, which I've published. And as journalists, I should make it clear that the articles are more fact-based. They are editorials than opinion that are not based on facts. So here, the significance of the agreement, the Revitalized Agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan. The name itself is called Revitalized Agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan. That's what we can start with, I think, to make things clear. There is a conflict, there has been a conflict. So the agreement revitalized an earlier agreement that was there, which was called also Agreement on the Resolution of the Conflict in South Sudan. So this process ended in 2018 with the signing of the agreement, and it was to revitalize the agreement that was there in place. Well, it is indeed significant in the sense that there are many provisions in the agreement that, when implemented, really can resolve the conflict in the country on issues of institutions and reform of laws, reform of institutions, and transitional justice, truth, reconciliation, and healing, building institutions that can provide justice, uphold human rights, and so many things. Despite the delays, the agreement still remains relevant, and it is also significant in the sense that the process involved several bodies and institutions and in the region and internationally, and so it's a huge process aimed at ending the conflict in the country. But then the disconnect sometimes happen between what is written and what is implemented, and why there are delays. So this is where even where people can talk about improving the agreement, because some actors, some stakeholders, they did not sign the agreement or pulled out from the process. Still, the roadmap there can resolve the conflict when implemented, even with improvements that are possible and legitimate that can be done.
When it comes to the Revitalized Agreement, there's a section that's solely dedicated to the judiciary system. Why is this important?
Well, from observation, what happened is that, of course, South Sudan became an independent country in 2011. But then the issues of institutions, including the judiciary, that needed for a country, a new country, when South Sudan became independent, there were issues that were not completed, even as envisioned in the CPA, the Comprehensive Peace Agreement that was signed in 2005, that ushered and gave South Sudan the chance to vote and became independent. So those issues of building institutions, building laws, including that are related to the judiciary, some of them did not take place. So you find, issue of justice, judiciary is to deliver justice. So when there's disconnect, when there are challenges that people even don't see that there is justice, don't see that the judiciary is able to function as it should, as it ought to be, then this confidence and issues of making that judiciary to be what it should, some of the issues that were raised by those who participated in the process of the agreement, and including the civil society and other stakeholders and others, even from outside South Sudan, and also the parties, they came up and put those provisions to reform the judiciary. And reforming the judiciary to be able to deliver justice is something of great significance, that even when some people feel that the judiciary is okay, still those who do not feel that the judiciary are okay, and they're able to cite the issues of laws that are not able to make the judiciary be what it should, issues of relevance that are also legitimate and significant, and the reform in the judiciary that are needed in terms of the laws that have been mentioned, the Judiciary Act, for example, and so many others that I believe we will continue answering in this interview.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the Revitalized Agreement on the resolution of conflict in the Republic of South Sudan, the document itself states that the judiciary of South Sudan shall be independent and subscribe to the principles of separation of powers and the supremacy of the rule of law. It goes on to state that there shall be established during the transitional period an independent, impartial, and credible constitutional court whose composition, functions, and duties shall be regulated by law. Is the judiciary system in the country independent, and has a constitutional court been established during this transitional period?
Well, these are two questions, the independence of the judiciary and the establishment of the constitutional court. So on the establishment of the constitutional court, one of the points I made in the article was that the agreement actually remains shallow on the issue of the establishment of the constitutional court. Shall be regulated by law. That was the establishment of that constitutional court shall be regulated by law. But it failed to mention which law and how that law shall be enacted, to what extent, and all this. So the point about having constitutional court that some people made during the negotiations and of the agreement, and some people think that having a constitutional court would help uphold the constitution and deliver justice. That argument is partly true, but the issue is some countries even don't have a court called constitutional court. It's about some countries have only Supreme Court, which is responsible for some of the issues that these people have raised. So it's about balancing what is it that the people want that constitutional court to be, and to what extent it is going to be. So the issue of having justice and having a constitution respected can be looked at in terms of the laws that are available. Still, if the people prefer having a separate court called constitutional court, to still need some of those guarantees that would make it be able to be independent and to deliver justice. And then to the other part of your question about parts of the CPA that got incorporated into the constitution, then that was in place, the Southern Sudan constitution, the interim constitution of Southern Sudan, that gave those were the legal framework that were in place, and until South Sudan got independent. So the independence of the judiciary, even as I pointed in the articles, they still remain compromised, and people would need to reform those laws that have been mentioned in the article, and also in relation to the implementation of the agreement, even as other improvements can be made. So there is an issue about the appointment of the judges, including the Chief Justice, the processes there that are there in the law, the laws that I cited there, including the Judiciary Act and the Judicial Service Council Act, and there is also some people, including some members of the government, who continue to mention that there is a Judicial Service Commission in South Sudan, Judicial Service Commission and Judicial Service Commission Act 2008. So these are some of the arguments I made in the article, that okay, if they have the Judicial Service Commission, as they mentioned and they continue to mention, even it has been included in the agreement that the Judicial Service Commission shall be reformed. These matters, of course, that I said that they should be more transparent as a matter of making information available to the public. Having Judicial Service Commission can help guarantee the independence of the judiciary. But when things are done in secrecy, or they're not shown, and they're not what the law envisioned, including in the Constitution, then the judiciary becomes compromised. Its independence becomes compromised. Even when it has done something independently, people don't believe it. It's not shown. So transparency is very important in this, and it can also go on into building confidence of the people in the judiciary.
On February 12th of this year, members of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights in South Sudan concluded their 9th visit to the country. After meeting with government ministers and officials, members of civil service society, as well as survivors of human rights violation and abuses, which includes sexual violence, among others, the chair of the commission, Yasmin Soka, stated that there is a consensus among key stakeholders that while some progress has been made in implementing the Revitalized Agreement, critical elements involving security sector reform, constitutional and electoral reform, and transitional justice have yet to be addressed. All of these outstanding issues impact on the human rights situation in the country. Most South Sudanese the Commission spoke to expressed their desire for political leadership to secure peace and justice, for which the agreement provides a roadmap. In this regard, what role does the United Nations Commission on Human Rights in South Sudan play, or what is their relevance in relation to the Revitalized Peace Agreement, as well as the implementation of the document itself?
Well, in brief, that Commission on Human Rights in South Sudan is mandated by the UN Human Rights Council to monitor the human rights situation in South Sudan and support transitional justice program. So that one also is connected to the agreement in the sense that when human rights violations are happening, then the Commission comes in, and also when the delays in the implementation of the transitional justice program is not going on, the delays is going on, and so there are those links between that. But apart from that, also there is also the National Human Rights Commission, the South Sudan Human Rights Commission, that is in the country, that's from the country. So when it comes to human rights and transitional justice, there can be links between all this, and at the same time also there are concerns about improving also the the ability of the National Human Rights Commission, the South Sudan Human Rights Commission that is formed or per the laws of the country.
Per the Revitalized Agreement, the Artigonist shall establish an ad hoc Judicial Reform Committee, abbreviated as JRC, to study and make recommendations to the Artigonist for consideration. The JRC shall be chaired by an eminent and independent jurist, and its members shall be drawn by the stakeholders from the legal profession. The ad hoc JRC shall be composed of Artigonist 5 members, SPLM-AIO 2 members, SOA 1 member, FDs 1 member, OPP 1 member, and IGAD representatives 2 members. How far has the process gone in the establishment of the Judicial Reform Committee, and what is their primary function?
I've not seen something practical at the moment about that, the formation of that ad hoc judicial, review committee, Judicial Reform Committee JRC. Recently, in the national report, the government of South Sudan presented the recent UN, the recent Universal Periodic Review, which I cited. The government was I cited in the article. The government was making it made points that the process has been going on and at advanced stage and all this. Also, also on the 10th, I think around the 10th of last month or about that, the body monitoring the agreement revitalized the reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission. Its interim chair also met a statement in one of the meetings of the plenary last month that the process was going on, and IGAT and involves issues about the appointments and all this. People can ask why have there been delays for all this time in the formation of that JRC, and even the study that it will undertake and then make recommendations to the revitalized transitional government of national unity Artigono for consideration. You see, it's going to study what reforms are needed and then make recommendation again to the Artigono, the revitalized transitional government of national unity, which is also formed from the parties to the agreement. So all this means how credible shall the process be, and will it be actually about making those reforms that shall make the judiciary what it should, independent and be able to deliver justice, and including protecting human rights and all this, and we're avoiding also impunity for violations of human rights. So these matters are very important, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be like giving the parties, including those in the government, a blank check to continue delaying and then again coming up with another process and then delaying and not implementing what should be implemented, what have been agreed on about the reforms.
Lastly, why should our viewers be concerned about the Revitalized Agreement and the process of its implementation? And also, why should they be concerned about the access to justice and judicial reform within the country?
The viewers, and I believe there are those in the country, there are those outside the country, there are those who are non-South Sudanese, there are those who in South Sudan for business or other engagements that are legitimate. There are those who are outside and also would want to come and invest in South Sudan and all this. So issues of access to justice, people have right to access justice, and that needs to be guaranteed. and the judicial reform element there is also about strengthening the confidence of the people in that access to justice and you know, for example, if somebody is in the country and they invested money and maybe something happened, they have disagreements, or you know, anything that can happen to their investment, they would need to be able to access justice. They deserve to access justice, and so this issue of access to justice is important to South Sudanese and also to others who are in South Sudan or would want to come to South Sudan. So the South Sudanese for a very long time, some people complained they're not able to access justice. Maybe they have properties or their rights infringed on, maybe in relation to their properties or in relation to the rights of others who may be related to them, their family, and all this. So these issues that are of significance to South Sudanese and all who are there or who would want to come there. And also the element about the reform, even before the conflict, because the agreement is called Revitalized Agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan. So there was an agreement, like I mentioned earlier, agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan. That was in 2015, and came, you know, after that was the conflict started in 2013, and there were a lot of killings happened, and a lot of violation of human rights, and many other issues. So but prior to that also, there have been concerns about the ability of the judiciary in South Sudan to deliver justice. And so the agreements continue to build on those concerns that the country needs a judicial system that can deliver justice and also can be trusted that it is delivering justice. So those reforms are of great concern to South Sudanese and others, as I mentioned. And yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Roger Alfred Yoron Modi, a South Sudanese journalist and author of the book, Freedom of Expression and Media Laws in South Sudan. We'll be discussing the Revitalized Agreement and also the article that he published titled On Access to Justice, Judicial Reform in South Sudan. I thank you for joining me here on Beyond the Headlines.